Hello, I'm going to talk about the second part of my technical presentation of watercolour paint, and this time I'm going to talk about the preparation of gum arabic. I did actually mention it before in my paint preparation in making a solution to add to your pigments, but this time I'm going to show you how to make the actual gum arabic solution. Now, as most watercolour painters will know, gum arabic is a very, very important part of the procedure of the paint because it is known as the carrier. It is what holds the pigment onto the paper. Without it, it would just brush off. Just with water, you wouldn't get that hold, which is what you want. You want your paintings to last. The gum arabic carrier has been developed over centuries. The early Winsor and Newton paint manufacturers really discovered this because one of the problems with watercolour paint was that the little tablets that they made dried out, and painters used to have to scrub those little tablets in order to get the paint off. But with the addition of the carrier, the paints became more malleable, and eventually George Rowney took it one stage further and made moist watercolour paints which actually never dry out. And of course they're very, very suitable for taking out in the field and doing other. So there we have this, a little brief history of why this gum arabic is so important. Now, what is gum arabic? Gum arabic is, as it says, it's a gum. And in its crude form, it's like this. It is in actual fact a resin that's collected from the acacia tree. And my manufacturer collects this stuff from trees in North Africa, in the sub-Saharan area, Senegal. He uses various species. I don't know quite what exact ones are, botanically speaking, but he does not particularly like this stuff because he mentions to watercolour painters that it's so hard to extract the powder. We're needing the powder. So over the years he has now manufactured this stuff, which as you can see is quite different, but actually is exactly the same. This is the powder, and it comes in 1 kilogram bags, and I've been using it over the years, and it's very, very easy to use, and I'm going to show you how to do it. When I come to saying why I'm up here in my kitchen at the moment, I am in my kitchen, I'm not in my atelier where I was with my pigments, is because gum arabic is a foodstuff. It is absolutely non-toxic. And so I can use it quite freely with my saucepans and with my measuring materials and my whisks, without fear of ever knowing that there are any chemicals around which might pollute my cooking. And that is good to know because one of the things I love about watercolour painting is because it is so environmentally friendly, and this is a very good example of it. So let's get going with this. What exactly do you need to make your gum arabic solution? I have here actually the remains of my last gum arabic solution, which I made. And this, as you can see, is a slightly tinted liquid. It doesn't pretend to be anything more. And these are the jars that I'm going to put it in. I haven't sterilised them yet, they're just finished, so that's why I need to make some more. Okay, I'm going to read you out the ingredients. Gum arabic solution. We will need 100 grams of gum arabic powder. I have weighed it out. I'm going to actually do 3 times that because I want them to fill my jars. Right? So that I'm going to put into my bowl. I also need 500 milligrams of filtered water. Now, some people recommend you use demineralized water. It's not necessary. But filtered water takes out any impurities, namely the chlorine, which is something we don't want in watercolour painting. 500 millilitres of filtered water. I have it here, and of course I'm going to use 3 times that. So 1,500 millilitres of water. Right, I need to pour out some more. I have got to say that in this procedure you don't have to be absolutely ultra scientific precise, but it does help, as we all know from cooking, that if we get our ingredients measures right, we're just that way to produce more accurate results. So I've stuffed the powder in there. 300 grams I've put in of white powder, and I've put 500 millilitres times 3 of water. Okay, the next thing I do, I want it to disperse, and so I take my whisk, my electric whisk, just my ordinary cooking whisk, I whisk it up, making sure that the whisk goes right to the bottom and that the thing is absolutely dispersed as best you can. When I've got this bowl full of mixed powder and water, I then transfer it to my saucepan on the stove. Now, this is quite important to do because, as I've said to you, gum arabic is a foodstuff and it needs cooking. It literally needs cooking. It is better if it's cooked. We all know that food is better if it's cooked. So, and this means that it will last longer. Gum arabic in its final solution will keep for a very, very long time, provided it's in the refrigerator. It doesn't need to be necessarily sealed that tight, but I put it in sealed jars. I made this in January 24, but actually before I did that this January, I had some which I mixed last year, and it has kept perfectly. If when you take it out of the fridge to use for your pigment mixing, you find it has a rather unpleasant, niffy, sort of sicky smell, it's gone rancid and you want to discard it. Discard it and start again, and make sure that your jar is thoroughly sterilised, either in the oven or the dishwasher or whatever. This doesn't happen very often at all. I have had one instance when I left the jar out during painting in rather high temperatures, and we're all used to rather high temperatures, it changes everything. Quite frankly, you do need to keep it cool and keep it stored in the fridge. So that having been said, once my mixture is transferred to the saucepan on the stove, I suggest you heat it to simmer point and just keep it simmering, just cooking as you would a sauce. You don't want it to burn, you want it to cook. So keep it on a simmer temperature and keep it for 20 minutes. When you've finished that, turn off your stove, move the pan with a lid on it and leave it for 6 or 7 hours until it's thoroughly cold. You might like to just have a little look and give it the odd stir to make sure that you've dispersed it properly. It's not so easy dispersing this very fine powder and water, so just keep an eye on it, perhaps whisk it again and leave it. So I'm whisking this solution. And what I want you to see is that it's frothing. Now the gum arabic will froth, and this is a bit. Don't worry about this. This is a normal procedure. It will froth up, but it will go down when it cools. So I've whisked that. I'm quite satisfied that it's dispersed, and I'm going to put it into my pan. And there's still some at the bottom. I can see it. I'm just going to make sure that all that powder has actually gone in. Very difficult to see when it froths that you have actually whisked it all correctly. I'm going to just whisk it slightly now. I've turned down my stove just to simmer. I brought it up to bubbling point and just very quickly turned it down. And now I need to for the final whisk. I'm quite pleased now that the lumps have gone. There's the odd one floating around, but that will sort itself out. And I've turned down my cooker to low simmer, and I shall leave it there now for 20 minutes or more, and I shall keep coming back and just having a peek at it while I sterilise my jars. That must not be forgotten. You must sterilise your jars and make sure that everything's clean and proper. And then finally, when I come back, a very, very simple procedure will be to filter what we've got in here. I like to filter it because I sometimes, well, when I used to use the hard stuff, of course, there used to be a lot of impurities in it. I don't think actually the impurities are in the powder at all, but it just makes me feel just that little double sure that I've got a really nice clean solution, which is what, of course, we want. So there we are. It's going to cook for 20 minutes, and I shall join you again soon. So here I am at the pan again, and I suppose it's been on the simmer for about 10 minutes now, and it's doing very nicely. It has completely dispersed. I haven't got a single white lump anywhere, and it's slowly changing its colour to this colour here. So another 10 minutes of just keeping an eye on this, and it will be ready to be switched off and left to cool. I would just like to say that I've got a nice big pan full there. It will fit both of my coffee jars, which have been cleaned and sterilised. If you were to buy this in your art store, you would get 100 milligrams, a little bottle this size, for a lot of money. So it's worthwhile just having a go with this. I'm back here with my gum arabic solution, which has sat quietly for the last 6 hours, and we have got here a nice solution which is dissolved and boiled quite nicely. It's cooked, and I'm ready for the final preparation, which is really very easy. I've got here, it's actually an apple catcher, which I have for the garden, but you can use any muslin bag or anything used for your jam making. It's the same thing. I'm basically going to pour it through just to make sure that it's ultimately clear and there's no lumps or bumps left at all, which I can't see in the bowl. So I'm going to fill it up. You can see it. It's still a bit frothy. Don't worry about that. That's the nature of the material. And I'm going to pour it into here. And the bulk of it, all right, we'll just pour straight through because of course it's the water. But I'm going to just gently squeeze it, which is something, by the way, you don't do in jam making. You're supposed to just actually leave it. But I'm going to do that, and I'm going to pour it through. It's a bit of a sloppy business, and it'll probably go where you don't want it to go. But that's what I do. Catch it pretty quickly, give it a bit of a squeeze, and there it goes all the way through. There is a little bit of something in the bag. This is why I'm doing it. Something that I didn't see. But in the main, it's pretty good. Squeeze it through, it's filling up nicely. That's worked very well. That's really very nice gum arabic. Very, very smooth. Just a little at a time. Don't overdo it. I'm nearly finished now. So there's just a bit in the bottom of the bowl now, which I shall leave. I can put that through into another little box. So the final thing, of course, is to fill the jars. Making sure that this should actually be clear, that it won't make any difference. I'm going to you can either pour it directly, or if you prefer to put it into a smaller. There it goes to the top. That's the first one. These are coffee jars. They've been in the dishwasher. They're really sterilised, and with the lids as well. There we go. And I shall fill the rest of it from there to the top. I've named it. I put the date on, which is quite important to keep. And so there I've got my supply of gum arabic for the next year and for my pictures. I do hope you'll try and do this, because it's a great aid to your pigment making. And of course, go back to my original video, which I said you need gum arabic, but you also need a little honey. You need a little honey, which is the preservative, which will keep the pigment you're making with this solution. It'll preserve it, and you'll have no problems at all in keeping your jars for as long as you want to paint. So there we are. We've come through 2 processes in my paint making, and I hope to follow on this by the next sequence I'm going to show you, which will be stretching the paper which takes the pigment. And that is actually quite a subject in its own right. And it has been researched very, very thoroughly and carefully, and of course every artist has their own way of doing it. But until then, I'll say goodbye for now. Thank you for watching.